Jay Smith, thank you very much for joining us once again. It's been a while since we had you on, and of course with the current events with Hatun in Speaker's Corner, we wanted to have you on again. So thank you for your time once again.
Well, listen, it's always good to come with you. I've been up on your site, and you're getting an awful lot of people from so many different walks of life. Kudos to you, because you're spreading it out so that you have almost every category ticked. And I wish I had your breadth and your ability.
Well, it's probably left over from involvement in politics, where you hit all different areas. But everything I have learned, I think, on Islam has been from those first contacts and meetings with yourself and with Sam Solomon, and that's put me on this path. So thank you for your input. And I remember those 10 evenings at Kensington Temple many moons ago. Yeah. Where you were filling that building. So that's where my journey started. So thank you for that.
Well, that is a lot of years ago. Listen, Peter, we do go back quite a few years, and I can see how the Lord is just blessing you and increasing you. And the platform that you have now to get information out to people is so important, because we don't have enough people who are willing to put their heads above the parapet, who are willing to go public like you are doing. So thank you for your platform. Thank you for all the energy and the time and the expense that you're putting into it. And thank you for bringing people like myself and others on board. You brought Beth Peltola, I see, just last week. Thank you for bringing her on board as well.
Beth was on, and we had Robert Spencer 2 months ago, and I saw you did a video with him recently on his book. And Jay, can I just ask, you've been doing a lot of stuff, a lot of books coming, a lot of videos on all different topics, including elephants in Mecca. Do you want to just give us a little bit of a 2-minute taster of some of the things you've been covering and what people will get when they go to your YouTube channel?
Yeah, this is the book that has caused all the problem. This is a book that was put out in 1997 by Dr. Robert Hoyland. This man reads and writes 18 languages, so he's a linguist. He was head of department at Oxford University, and he wrote this book in 1997, and it's called Seeing Islam as Others Saw It. Basically, what he was asking is a very simple question, and that is, where is this character? Did this guy even exist? This is Robert Spencer's book. This is the one why you brought him on the show. Yeah. This is the new one that's just come out. It's been out 2 weeks, because there's so much new material on this very question. And that is the historical question, Peter. We are fed up with the 9th and 10th century traditions, because they're so late and they're so far north. And so we're saying, if this guy did exist, if Islam did begin at this time, if the Quran was put together at this time, and if there's a city named Mecca, then there should be some reference to it in the century that these events happen. And we can't find anything at all. And so that's why we have been going back and asking that question. Did Muhammad exist? Did Mecca exist? Did the Quran exist in the 7th century? And the answer is absolutely not. Now you're going up and you can see that this has just blown open the whole debate. Because our good friend Hatun Tosh went one step further, and she said, hold on a minute. Well, actually, it was by accident. I don't know if you know the story. She was in North Africa, and she was teaching there, and she was in Morocco, the country of Morocco. She doesn't speak Arabic herself. She's Turkish. Her father is a well-known imam there in Istanbul, but she wanted to get an Arabic Quran for the students that she was teaching. She went into the bookstore and says, could you give me please, an Arabic Quran? And the fellow behind the counter says, well, which one? Which one? Just give me which one. Now, as a good Muslim, having grown up in an imam's family, she knew that there's only one Quran, and there's always been one Quran, because by definition, if it is eternal, you cannot have any man-made manipulation. No Quran can be manipulated and changed and accreted and deleted. Otherwise, God no longer is protecting it. And it says very clearly in the Quran in chapter 15, verse 9, that Allah will protect it. Not one word, not one letter will change. So she heard this. This was like a paradigm shift for her. She says, there's more than one. She says, yeah, we have here. Just take a look at these here. Those are 9 different Arabic Qurans that I have right here. Well, I have Hafs there. I have Warish. I have Qalun. I have Ibn Umayyad. I have Shoba, I have in Katir, I have in Kusai. And so he just started naming a number of these off to her. She said, well, give me all of them. And so he did. And of course, as a result of that, she brought them back to London. And that's where this whole story, this whole saga began. And because of this 5'2" lady back there in 2013, we then took it down to Speaker's Corner in 2016. I'll be sharing some screens, some shots of that. But that is really what's going on here. And this is something that we need to talk about, because the press doesn't understand this. The world doesn't understand this. The church doesn't even understand this. I would suggest even people working with Muslims don't know what Hatun has done, don't understand what she represents, who she is, her background, or how she has shut down the Quran. She has shut down the Quran like no one other in my lifetime, and has done so in a very public way, as Hatun is usually good at doing.
Well, we had the privilege of having Hatun on a couple of months ago, but do you want to just give us an update? Obviously, on Sunday, she was there, as every Sunday, speaking. You obviously have much experience of doing that. You did it for well over a decade. Give us an update and use some of your slides and let us know what happened to her and what this big issue is. Why is she annoying them so much?
Yeah, let me do the PowerPoint, because I did it at another interview that I was just at earlier today, and so in some ways you can benefit. But this is back on July 25th, so we're talking about 3 days ago. We're talking about there in Hyde Park. Now, Speaker's Corner is the one place, the bastion of speech. This is the one place you should be able to say anything. I'm not going to show you the video of the attack. You can go up on Fander Films. That's my YouTube channel. I put it up within hours of it happening. I got it here in the United States. I immediately went and pulled down all the videos I could find and created a story real quickly so that people could see it, just to allay people's fears that she was okay. There you can see she, on the right, she has collapsed from the attack of the knife that punctured her head. And also you can see on her hand, she got quite a few wounds on her hand as she was protecting herself. This guy was going full tilt into her, and he was going for her throat. He was trying to either get her eye out, and then he was going for her throat. Now, once she was out for about, I would say, 2 minutes. Once she got back onto her feet, look at the picture on the left. Rather than sit there and recriminate and say all these things essential against the, what has just happened. And this is, I'm going to quote what she says. Essential for you to remember, dear Muslim people, Lord Jesus does not need me. I can die. That's not going to help you, because the Lord Jesus does not need me. However, Allah is in need of you for to be God. In order for him, that's her broken English. In order for him to be God, he needs you. Allah cannot do without you. Your prophet cannot live without you. Cutting people's eyes is to help you. I mean, bless her heart. And then she went right into the gospel, and she just started preaching Jesus crucified. And she said, you Muslims, rather than trying to cut me up, why don't you just receive Jesus? You need to be redeemed. God, I just said, this is classic Hatun. And this is one reason why she is so dangerous. She is so clear of what her volition is. She is so clear of why she's there. She is so clear of what her remit is, and she was responsible to only one person, and that's Jesus Christ. She doesn't even care about her own health or her own safety. Now, the fellow that did it is this guy here, and I'm going to put his picture up there, because if any of you, this is going out there in Britain, those of you who are in Britain who are watching this program, some of you may recognize this guy. He was wearing a hoodie, and of course he had the COVID mask on, so that really covered much of his face. But he was the one that attacked her. If any of you know this face, if any of you know who this fellow is, call 101 and just tell them, say you know who he is, give them the name. The reference, if you want the reference, is CAD 4376/25 July. 25 July is the date it happened. Or if you don't want to be known who you are, if you don't want to give your name, you can call anonymously to 0800-555-111. Here is another picture of Hatun's attacker. What was interesting, this was taken just by accident. People didn't know who he was. He was just standing there with his hands in his pockets, looking straight ahead like he was in a trance. When she came up with her backpack, as she came forward, it was raining at the time, he immediately went into action. So it was obvious to all of us looking at that this was premeditated, that he went to Speaker's Corner to kill her, that he completely covered up all his garb because he did not want to be recognized. So I just wanted to start with that because that's important. And then we can get into what was really going on. What really is going on is these books here, but we can get into that later on. We'll come back to that.
Well, Jay, could I just ask you about your experience there? Because you were there a long time. You did have some skirmishes, but with Hatun, it seems quite different in that this has happened quite a few times. The police have arrested her, I think, twice last year because they were worried about the intensity of the Muslim crowd against her. She was, I think, punched, I think it was near the end of last year. This has obviously happened. Is it because she is a convert, or is it because what she's talking about? What makes her kind of so dangerous and concerning?
There's a number of factors here. Now, I went down to Speaker's Corner from 1992 to 2017. So I was there for 25 years, and I counted at how many times I've been there. I've been over 1,100 times to Speaker's Corner. Wow. So you might say I've watched it change in the last 25 years. I've seen what has happened. Back in the 1990s, when I started, there were very few Christians down there. They were almost, the entire corner was full of Muslims. They dominated the corner, and you would have ladder after ladder after ladder with all their talibés around them. So, and I was only about 2 or 3 or maybe 4 of us at the most who were Christians against hundreds of Muslims at that time, and it was much more violent at that time. To be fair, it's not violent today, and that's because of 9/11. Prior to 9/11, in the 1990s, it tended to be a lot more violence. We did get beat up quite a bit. I got glasses broken. You can see where they opened up my throat here. It was not on a weekly basis, but we would be harassed all the time physically. And that's why we couldn't get people to help us out. No one wanted to deal with that kind of abuse. Once 9/11 happened, that all changed. And suddenly the narrative changed from a religion that was violent to a religion of peace. They became a religion of peace almost overnight. And that was all across the boards. All the media was saying that. All the Muslims were saying that. And so as a result, they had to start acting peaceful. And they did. And for the most part, they have been peaceful. There have been, of course, there's still the catcalling, there's still the harassment, but even the women on my team, and I had mostly women on our team, they were the ones that stayed the longest. People like Beth Belto that you had on, Sarah Lumgar, who has been on for years, and then of course Hatun. And Hatun is the one that took over my ministry. I started getting her up on the ladder in 2013. So she and I were on the ladder for about 3 years together. And she has moved way beyond what I do. Now, she does things I will never do. She mocks Muhammad. I will never do that. She drills holes into the Quran. I will never do that. Her whole ethos is different than what I'm used to doing. I don't feel comfortable mocking Muhammad or mocking the Quran, for a very good reason, because that's, for me, it can be counterproductive, and it is counterproductive, but she's doing that for a purpose. She is doing something that no one dares to do outside of possibly David Wood and Sam Shamoon, and that is to actually go on the offense. But whereas David Wood and Sam Shamoon are behind their television, their computer screens in the comfort of their own homes, Hatun is in the public doing it. Yeah. There's the difference. I mean, I know the most famous, probably the one who mocks the most, is probably what's his name, Prince. I can't even remember, Prince or whatever his name is.
Okay, yeah.
He is the one that probably is the most prolific, but you never even see his face. No one even knows who he is. You don't even know his identity. You don't even know where he lives. We're not even sure what country. I mean, I know where he lives and I know what country he lives in, but I've never met him, and you never will meet him. Hatun, you can meet. Hatun is down there every week. Hatun is usually up on a ladder. During the time of COVID, they don't have ladders, but normal time they would be up on ladders. And that's why she is putting her face and her body in the line of fire. And that is difficult. That is different, because Muslims have never met somebody of that type of caliber. We did it, but we would not do the mocking that we did. But I think to understand really why Hatun is different is, first and foremost, she's a woman, but most importantly, she's an apostate. Now, that is something that Islam does not at all forgive. In chapter 4, verse 89 of the Quran, it's very clear that those who turn away from Islam, you must kill. So the Quran is very clear that they must be killed. The traditions are very clear in Sahih Bukhari, chapter 9, verse, I think it's hadith number 17 and also hadith number 57 and 58. It's very clear that those who have left Islam, if they are apostates, they must be killed. The only difference between the four schools of law, the Hanbali, Hanafi, Maliki, and the Shafi school, is when you kill them. The Hanbali schools says you must kill them on that day. The others say no, 3 days. You have to give them time to repent. If they don't repent, then you kill them. And I think the Shiites are the most lenient. They say up to 10 days you can give the apostate. But all schools of law say the apostate must be killed. So you can see then why Hatun is an apostate. She is a woman, and she mocks Allah. Now, Dr. Mark Deary has done a great job. He was on Australian television this morning, or maybe late last night, since they're a day ahead of us. And he got up there and he said, when you look at the Quran, when you look at in the Quran, and I'm just going to quote some of the things. He said there are a number of things in the Quran that follow a evolution. When Muhammad first started doing his ministry in Mecca, he said very clearly that you are only to dispute with those who don't believe. And he quoted from chapter 16, verse 125, which says, call to the way of your Lord with wisdom and beautiful instruction, and discuss with them using a more excellent way. So that's just dispute with them, which we have no problem with. I mean, Peter, that's what we do at Speaker's Corner. We dispute, we discuss, we debate. That's the whole purpose of Speaker's Corner. You speak. You don't use your fist. You don't use knives, and you certainly don't use weapons of this world. So obviously that was how it began. But then what Mark Deary said is later the Quran changed to one of violence. And is that you find, for instance, in chapter 8, verse 39, slay the unbeliever until there is no more fitna. Now, what does fitna mean? Well, today, what fitna means, and what it was in the time that was written, it means disbelief or opposition to the Islam. So if you are disbelieve or if you oppose Islam, you must be slain. That's in chapter 8, verse 39. It's repeated also in chapter 2, verse 193. And then it goes on and says, fitna, unbelief or opposition, is worse than killing in chapter 2, verse 217, and also verse 191. So there is the reference. Now, what Deary says is, when you look at the example of Muhammad himself, take a look and see how he applied this. When you look and see how Muhammad applied it, take a look and see what he did when he moved to Medina. He moved there in 622. Within the first few weeks of being there, there was a poetess named Asma bint Marwan who was writing poetic verse and mocking him. And he said, who's going to take care of this woman for me? And Umar, one of his disciples, went that evening and he plunged a knife into her chest. As she was suckling her baby, she had 6 children there in the room with her, and he plunged the knife into her chest, came back the next morning, told Muhammad what he had done. And Muhammad turned toward him and said, blessed are you for what you have done for your prophet. So this is the example of Muhammad himself. He is praising somebody who kills a woman, suckling her baby, and her crime was mocking him. That was it. That was the crime. So if you read that as a Muslim, as all Muslims have, look and see of the 25 men and women that he had killed between 622 and when he moved there, and to between 632 when he died. Those 25 were killed only because they mocked Muhammad. So if that is your model, if that is your paradigm, then you can understand why these young men and women are following that, and they're coming down and they're not allowing Hatun Tash even to use anything. Now let's go back and show you what she is doing. Can we do that if we go back to the slides?
Yeah, Jay, can I just one little one of the reasons I wanted you to come on is because obviously you've worked closely with Hatun, and you both have a similar understanding of how to tackle Islam. Where with some people, they talk about reforming Islam, making it soft and cuddly and cute and nice for the West, where you and Hatun will come from a position where you actually would encourage Muslims to leave Islam and come and accept Jesus and become a Christian. And of course, Jesus is, as Isa is mentioned in the Quran. So that I just want to point that out, because I think it's only fair to mention that, because that's what Hatun is there doing week in, week out. She's not saying she wants to reform it or change it. She's saying you should reject it and accept Jesus.
let me just take off from that. And that's a good point you're bringing up, Peter. Thanks for mentioning it. Stop and ask, Peter, who are the people that are saying you can reform Islam? Are there Muslims saying that? Yes. And they tend to be the very liberal ones, the very liberal ones. So the ones, the ones on the left, the very liberal ones, are saying, yes, we need to reform. And they tend to be ones that are living in our countries. They have moved away from Islamic states. They have come to the West. They have come to Britain. They have come to America, Australia, all these other places to get away from the radical Islam, the one on the right. And that's why they are very clear that the best thing to do is to sanitize it. Now, how do you do that? Well, first of all, you've got to get rid of these scriptures. You've got to get rid of these references. And listen, there's 150 of these verses that are in the Quran that are violent. In fact, there is not one verse in the Quran that says that you're to have peace with me, a Christian. I've asked this for 40 years. Not one verse in the Quran says you're to have peace with me. Now, they try to go to chapter 2, verse 256, or chapter 2, verse 190, or chapter 5, verse 32. But look at the context of all those three verses. They have nothing to do with non-believers. Those are only for Muslims. And that's why peace in Islam is only for other Muslims, not for the Kafirs and not for the Al-Kitab. That's us. Chapter 9, verse 29 says to make war against us. Chapter 9, verse 5 says to slay the mushriks. Mushrikun. We are the mushrikun. We are those who they believe, we don't believe that, but they believe we've elevated Jesus to the status of God. That's committing shirk. We are the mushrikun, is the masculine plural of that word. So they are to slay us, besiege us, lay in wait for us for every kind of ambush. Look at chapter 47, verse 4. The first three verses in that chapter define who a believer is and who an unbeliever is. And then verse 4 says, cut off the heads of the unbelievers. Cut off the heads. So you can see, if you're going to reform Islam, you're going to have to take all those verses out. So it's only secular people that are saying that. Now, you're a Christian. Would you do that to the Bible if there's something in the Bible you didn't like?
Nope. Nope.
Would you listen to somebody who had done that?
Nope. You take it all.
Yeah. Would you invite them on your show?
Nope.
Can you see how stupid a solution that is? And people who are saying that are either Muslims who have already left Islam, they've come to the West to get away from Islam. They no longer represent Islam, and you will not see them on any mosque. You will not see them on any Islamic show. You will not see any Muslim giving them any airtime, because they do not represent Islam. Once you move away from scripture, once you have censored text, you are taking away from God's holy word that is eternal. You cannot do that. So that really is a non sequitur. It's a non-beginner. And the only other ones I know that are saying that tend to be secular people who don't understand the power of scripture. We as Christians understand the power of scripture. You understand it. I understand it. And we know that that would never, ever be allowed in any church that I go to, or in any institution or any Bible school or a seminary. Nobody can sit there and pick and choose and throw out what they dislike or like. You can certainly you can look at a verse and interpret it different. Yes, but you don't actually pull out the verse itself and throw out the verse because it does not fit your paradigm. So that is not a solution at all, Peter, at all. And I don't see why people are I think it is.
No, I just want to put that out because, I mean, we're not a Christian program. I'm a Christian, you are, Jay, but many of our viewers will not be. And this whole issue of how you tackle Islam, people come at it from different points of view. So I just always want to make sure, and we're talking about Hatun, and pay kind of credit to her. And this is her approach, as is your approach. So to make that clear that, yeah.
On our team, we start from that premise that we're not there to try to excise or censor the text. We've got to read the text, and we've got to read it as the author intended. That's called exegesis. You can impose upon it and all you want. That's called eisegesis, but you're not going to get you're not going to get much a headway from the Muslims. So obviously there has been a problem with Hatun, and Hatun will not go right or left. She knows exactly from what she speaks. She knows of how she speaks. And God bless her, she is as provocative as you can get. If you have any doubt, go up onto her YouTube site. It's called DCCI on YouTube. Defending Christ, Critiquing Islam. There it is, the last two letters. Critiquing Islam, Defending Christ, Critiquing Islam. And she's had that YouTube site for ever since I left in 2017, she started that site because she was on Fander Films before that. And that, I think she's upwards of 7 million people have watched it now. So she's getting huge numbers, enormous amount of people. And after this event, there's going to be tens of thousands or more that are going to come on board with her. And what you will see is that she refuses to compromise. And I think we have to give her credit for that. Now, I won't do what she does. There are parts I think she's gone too far. I don't. I wish she would stop wearing those Charlie Hebdo shirts, because if you look at the news today, take a look at all the news channels that are talking about this story. What was she? She was not a Christian. They're not even calling her a Christian. They're calling her someone who is supporting Charlie Hebdo. The whole narrative in almost all the news channels is Charlie Hebdo. Well, how unfortunate that they didn't listen to what she said once she got up, once she stood up. She didn't say anything about Charlie Hebdo. She didn't even talk about that cartoon. What did she talk about? She talked about repentance, coming home to Jesus Christ, that you cannot at all destroy me. I mean, you can destroy me, you can kill me, but that's not going to destroy the word of God. And this is not getting out in the news channels.
And Jay, we'll finish off with some of the news reporting, but I am fascinated. I saw some of the slides earlier, and I'm fascinated to look at those, because this is the issue, and what Hatun has said. As you say, this very short Turkish lady, what words has she used that have infuriated the Muslims there? So can you let us have a glimpse of all these Qurans and why it's so important?
Yeah, these are the Qurans that she found. These are just 26 that she found in 2016. Since that time, she's found another she's up to 37. 30 of these Qurans are official Arabic Qurans. Now, for many of you listening, you probably say, hold on a minute, there's only one Quran. Every one of those Qurans you're looking at there is different. Just looking at those 26 there, Hatun's team, the team that's there in London, has been able to find 93,000 different words. When you have different words, you have different sentences. When you have different sentences, you have different verses. When you have different verses, you have different meanings. When you have different meanings, you have different practices, you have different beliefs, and you have different doctrines. That's what Muslims don't want you to hear. And Hatun was the first to know that, acknowledge that, when she brought these Qurans. She only had about 6 of them at that time in 2014, and showed them to me. I started laughing, because I thought that these had all been dumped into the Nile River in 1924 in Cairo, when they realized that they could not have standardized tests. And they dumped the ones that were remaining there amongst the high school students and only chose one. And the one they chose was the Hafs. Before we talk about the Hafs, what we did then is we took them down to Speaker's Corner. And there you can see us holding them up. This is in June of 2016. And there's Hatun there with me. They're grabbing them. The Muslims are grabbing them out of our hands. They did not want us to talk about this. They had never heard this before. If you look at the picture on the right, see the tall man there? His name is Muhammad Hijab. Muhammad Hijab is one of the best known speakers on YouTube. He has a following, I think, of close to 500,000, 500,000 people. He is well known all over the Muslim world, and he is regularly down at Speaker's Corner. He stands about 6'6", so he stands higher than anybody else. He was right in the crowd watching this, and he immediately left the crowd, and you can see him gesticulating, "Come to me. Do not listen to them. Leave what you're hearing. Don't look at what they're showing you, and don't listen to what they were saying." And so he took all the Muslims out of our crowd and took them over to the side. I would love to know what he said, because it's obviously he didn't know what to do with this. The reason why was 4 years later, in 2020, he had an interview on YouTube with this man here, Yasir Qadhi, Dr. Yasir Qadhi, that you see in the blue shirt. That's Muhammad Hijab on the left there with his beard. This just took place a little over a year ago. And Yasir Qadhi is considered to be the world authority on the Quran, on this very problem. This is known as the Qira'at readers. The Qira'at are the different readings of the Quran. So if you look behind me here, I have 9 different readings of the Quran, 9 different Qurans that read differently. And if you look at just 2 of them, if I show you just these 2 right here, I'll just stop screen and I'll bring it back again. If you look at just these 2 right here, this one here is known as Warsh. This one here is known as Hafs. This is the one that was chosen in 1924, Peter. They're in Cairo for the whole world. So that today now, 95% of the Muslims memorize the Quran using this version. But this one here is the second most popular. This is being read and memorized by all those in North Africa that constitutes about 3% of all Muslims. And when you look at these 2, the Hafs and the Warsh, there are 5,000 different words, 5,000 different sentences, 5,000 different meanings just between these 2 books. So it's very important which one you memorize. And it all has to do with the dots and the vowels, where you put the dots and the vowels. When you put there are 5 different dots, you put them in, and you put the 3 different vowels, you can get, with just one word of 3 letters, you can get up to 33 different words. That's the problem. And no one was told that. No one knew about that. No one had heard about that until Hatun and I uploaded them and held them up there at Speaker's Corner back in 2016. So here's 2020. Yasir Qadhi is asked this question. What Muhammad Hijab did, he put his hand down and said, which Quran, which of these readings are you going to, is in heaven, is the one that's eternal, is the one that was sent to Muhammad? And Yasir Qadhi said, do not ask me this question. We don't talk about this in public. This is the most difficult problem for Muslim scholars for the last 1,000 years. Now, he went on to say that the standard narrative has holes in it. The standard narrative means the standard Islamic narrative has holes in it. What does he mean? Well, this is the biggest hole right here, because the standard Islamic narrative that he quotes and that everybody else quotes is that there's only one Quran. The standard Islamic narrative also says that there's no difference between any letter and any word. And he has said this for years, and every Muslim mimics that, until we show that there were 26 Qurans with 93,000 differences between them. And these changed the meaning, the doctrine, and the practice in many of the cases. At that time, he realized that by doing that, he went public. And by going public, of course, they had to take that interview off of both of their channels within 2 months. We still have them, and we're still reminding the world that that interview existed. Now, what Hatun has done is that she has been going down to Speaker's Corner, and she's been holding up a Quran with holes in it. Do you see the Quran there? She's drilled holes in it, taking off from what Yasir Qadhi says. The standard Islamic narrative has holes in it. Not just that, the Quran has holes in it. And that is provocative. That is highly provocative. I won't do that. I will talk about the holes, but I won't actually put holes in the Quran. And so that's why she has become a lightning rod for Muslims, because she is so public. She's doing it on film. She puts them up on YouTube. And then she's also been wearing the Charlie Hebdo shirts every afternoon, every Sunday afternoon when she is there. Now, because of that, the police have had to, you are correct, 3 times they've had to actually arrest her and get her out of the corner, because the Muslims have wanted to, well, basically kill her. And that's why they have been saying, kill her, kill her, kill her. For her protection, the police have arrested her and taken her out. What's interesting is not one time did the police arrest any of those who were yelling to kill her, or even the man that beat her up. And it doesn't look like they're going to catch this guy. I will hope they do. I would like to see if they even arrest this man and what they will do, how they were prosecuted. But what's fascinating, most people think, therefore, that the reason she's been beat up, the reason that she's been attempted to be killed is because of those T-shirts. It's not the T-shirts, Peter. It's the Quran and what she did with these books. The fact that she was the first one to introduce it worldwide. The fact that she used the internet and continues to use the internet to continue to force Muslims to deal with this and never, ever claim again that there's one Quran, or that this Quran even came from Muhammad. Because take a look at these Qurans that I'm holding in my hand. This Quran was created in 796. Muhammad died in 632. This Quran was created in 812. These men who wrote these Qurans never knew Muhammad. They didn't even come from the same century. This Quran comes from Kufa in Iraq. This Quran comes from Cairo in Egypt, hundreds of miles away and hundreds of years later. And that's why Muslims don't want to hear this, because in one fell swoop, a lady of only 5'2", has shut down the Quran, has destroyed it. And remember what Mark Dewey said. When you have someone that opposes you, you can certainly discuss. That was the first thing that Muhammad did when he was in Mecca. And it made sense. In Mecca, he would have to discuss. You can't sit there and use violence, because he was not an authority. Once he moved to Medina and he was then authority, he became the caliph, and he started the caliphate there by 624. The other verses started to come. And what was the verses that came? Now use violence and kill those who oppose you, even if they mock you. Anybody that opposes you, anybody that has fitna, kill them. That's chapter 8, verse 39. So you can see over and over again, the Quran is very clear. Muhammad is very clear that any opposition to Muhammad and any opposition to the Quran. Remember in chapter 5, verse 33, it says, for those who oppose Allah and his prophet, crucify them. and cut off their hands and feet from opposite ends. Why don't people read those verses? If you want to know what Muslims are doing, if you want to know why Muslims are angry with Hatun, if you want to see why they're trying to kill her, it's because they're following their Quran. They are reading those verses. And that's why I say to Muslims, and I say this to secular people, you cannot reform the Quran. You cannot change those verses. The only thing I know to do, the only solution I have is to leave this book, get rid of this book, and come back to this book. Because this is the only book that says we are to love our enemies. This book says to lay down your sword. Peter, that's in Matthew 26, verse 62. Lay down your sword, Peter, for he who lives by the sword dies by the sword. This book says to use the sword and to kill those who oppress you, to cut off their heads, and to besiege them, to make war upon them. So you can see, take a look at these two books and you tell me, which is the book of peace? Well, you better come to the bigger. I keep it bigger for a reason. It's a bigger and the better book. It's bigger than my Quran because it is the only solution. And it's the solution that Hatun is preaching. And it's the solution she gave when she finally got back up on her feet on Sunday. Bless her. She keeps to message. And that's one of the few people that can do that. God has really gifted her. We need to pray for her. We need to pray that she does get healed. And she's going back down there on Sunday. She will not stop going back down there. She knows that she probably will be killed. But remember, she always quotes back to me whenever I say, Hatun, they are going to kill you. She said, Jay, it's your fault. And I said, why is it my fault? She said, because when we first got to know each other, you told me to go back and read the book of Acts and read about Paul's ministry. And take a look what Paul did. He got hated. He got thrown into prison twice. They tried to stone him to death. He caused a riot in Ephesus, and they finally killed him in Rome. She says, I'm just doing what Paul did. It's your fault. And then she says, do you remember the commissioning, Jay, in Matthew 10? In Matthew 10, Jesus is commissioning the 12 disciples. He's sending them out as lamb before wolves. And she says, look at the 5 things that Christ commissions the 12 to do. She said, if you go in my name, you're going to be hated. If you go in my name, you will be persecuted. If you go in my name, you're going to be jailed. If you go in my name, you are going to be flogged. All 4 of those Hatun has been. She's been hated, she's been persecuted, she's been put in jail, and she's been flogged for Christ's name. She's fulfilled those 4. She said there's only one more to fulfill. If you preach in my name, they will kill you. Number 5. That has yet to come. And that should have happened on Sunday. If you look at the videos, there's no way in the world she should have survived the wailing of the enormous thrust that he was throwing at her. The only reason she is alive, Peter, I believe, is because God was protecting her. God was saying, this is not your time. Yesterday, she put up a 2-hour video in her kitchen with 3 others that were off camera. And she was kind of joking. She didn't want to talk about it. She wanted to talk about Yusuf Qadi and his newest material that has come out, praising Muhammad. And she just happened to say, I was protected by God on Sunday. She said, you know what would have happened? I would have got up to heaven and God would have looked at me and said, what are you doing here? It's not your time yet. Go back down again. So that's why I'm still here, she said. So she jokes about it, but she knows very clearly the price that she is paying already. And the wounds were all on her head and on her hand, even as she was talking. If you go up on DCCI, you can see her. Bless her heart. We have a unique woman. And I would suggest that we have a new Paul. This is a Paul for our day. This is a Paul for our time. And this is a Paul we don't deserve. I like to call her a Pauline because she has come to London and she has come to Britain to bring Muslims home and to also say that there is a need for freedom of speech. This is the last place on earth where we have a freedom of speech. And that's why she wears those Charlie Hebdo shirts. She's trying to make a point. She says, if I cannot wear Charlie Hebdo's shirt here at Speaker's Corner, then we have lost this freedom. One of the cardinal freedoms that we have striven to attain for 1,000 years. How can we lose it in one generation? And how can we lose it to these people who we know will continue to do what they do? You can't stop them from attacking us. You can't stop them from trying to kill us because the Quran tells them to do so. And this is holy writ. This is divine writ. It is not a man-made book according to Islam. You and I know it is, but not according to the Muslims who are attacking us. We've got to take them seriously, and we've got to take this book seriously.
Jay, I love, as you talked about Hatun, one of the things which I think you like so much about her, as do I, as do others, is that it's about the message, it's about what she wants to put out, and it's not about her, that she's not interested in that position or publicity. She's only interested in getting across the message. And that's what's so refreshing. Often you have people involved in public endeavors and it can be about them or the spotlight, where with her it's nothing to do with her and purely to do with the message. So that's, I think, what we all like so much about her.
We love it. And even if you look at the 2-hour video she put up yesterday, they were all there, and they were all saying, we're just praising that you are alive. And so she had to say something, and she just spent maybe 2 minutes just saying, I should have died. You're right, but the Lord would not have liked me to come. He would have probably sent me right back again. She made a joke out of it, and that's all she wanted to talk about. She didn't want to talk about the gash on her head. She didn't want to talk about her bandaged hand. She didn't even want to mention it. She just wanted to get to the work at hand, and that's what Hatun has always done. I remember when she was knocked unconscious back on October 25th last year. By that man, her glasses were broken. She got right back up and started preaching the gospel again. She didn't even mention one word about the attack. And that is rare to find in people. You're right, Peter. We do love this about her, but we also need to pray for her, because she's walking into a huge amount of animosity and hatred, because she's a woman, because she's an apostate, and because she dares to mock Muhammad, and she dares to shut down the Quran. One woman, 5'2". Look what she has done to the Quran in just the last 4, now we're saying 5 years. This woman is unique, and because of that, the Lord has really, I think, has given her a special gifting. The 3 years I was working with her there at Speakers there in London, I've never seen a woman that worked as hard as she did. She would only sleep 4 days a week. 4 nights a week, excuse me, and she was into around 400 mosques, just walks right in uninvited. And in the last year before I left, she had brought 125 Muslims to Jesus Christ, and 5 imams left Islam because of her. And all she did was use polemics against the Quran. She only uses polemics. She only confronts the Quran, looking at the qira'ats and then looking at the manuscript evidence to show that this is not a book from God. This is not a book from Muhammad. It's not even a book from Uthman. It's not even from the 7th century. It was created possibly in the 8th, 9th, and 10th century, written by men, accreted, deleted, and manipulated, and of course borrowed from many other sources, and then finally canonized in 1924, less than 100 years ago. What a woman! What a time! And what,
Jay, can I just, as we draw to a close, can I just touch on the response, public response, particularly in the media? It was interesting to look at the BBC, the Daily Mail, Metro. A lot of places did report what had happened, but I noticed, reading through all the initial reports, even the Daily Mail, that there was one word that was missing in the whole report. It did not use the word Islam anywhere. It talked about a woman who was attacked, seemed to be a random attack, then mentioned a Charlie Hebdo t-shirt, talked about now it was Islamist attack in France, and then talked about, I think there was a statement from a police officer, and that ended off by saying, please do not speculate on why this has happened, as we do not know yet. So later on, the media, they were more honest. They found out who she was. They talk about her work opposing Islam as a Christian and talked about why she does what she does. But I just thought there was a huge gap at the beginning, that once again, the media weren't willing to accept that actually this could have been carried out, seems to have been carried out by someone following their faith in anger at what she has said.
Yeah, I think this is inevitable. This is something we've always known, Peter. When we were down there, every time that I got attacked, the police would come to me and then blame me as the victim. Says, it is your rhetoric. Tone down your rhetoric. And I said, this is Speaker's Corner, for heaven's sakes. This is an institution that's been around for 160 years for just that reason. It's the only place where we can ask these damaging questions and introduce this damaging material. We can't do it on university campuses. And so you can understand why the media is not even aware of this. They're not aware of this because they have no paradigm for this. They don't know Hatun, and they don't know what she's been up to. They've only now heard it, and they noticed that she was wearing this T-shirt. Now you might say, well, it's unfortunate that the T-shirt has become the narrative. The T-shirt has become the the whole position, because then the media is suddenly their antennas up because of what happened in Paris there on October 25th, and because of the situation that happened with the Charlie Hebdo offices, where in 2015, when 11 people were killed, those who actually were the one that created these comics. Because of that, they only want that narrative to get out there, and they don't want this to be Islam. They don't want to use the word Islam. Because their whole culture and worldview is these are only aberrations. This is not true Islam. Remember, here in the West, Islam is a religion of peace. Since 9/11, it's only ever been a religion of peace, and you cannot put that in print that it's a religion of violence. They are hung and hang-tied by their censorship. We aren't. We do not have any censorship. We can say exactly what we know and what we experience. So in some ways, that is why you need to get this out. That's why we need to get this out. That's why we need to get more public, and we need to make sure that the world hears that there is a religious war going on here, and the war is only coming from one side. The violence is only coming from one people, and it is not Christians who are violating anybody. We don't see Christians who are using the sword just because our Lord Jesus Christ would not let us. The sword is uniquely coming from Islam. And it is, I mean, how many times have we had to say this over and over again? But for a secular standpoint, from a journalistic standpoint, they want to whitewash all religions and put them in the same bag and say all religions are therefore violent. So in order for them to say that Islam is violent, they have to say Christianity is violent. And they can't find many examples. And the only example they could come up with was the New Zealand example, where the guy that was there had nothing to do with Christianity, but he was then, because he was white, because he was from Australia, I think it was, he must have been a Christian. And that's, you can see they're struggling to come up with a narrative that is consistent. Thank God I'm not in their shoes. Thank God I don't have those restrictions, and neither do you, Peter. We have the freedom to say exactly what we know and be as transparent as possible. The reason why they are attacking Hatun, why they did so, and they will continue to do so, is because she is a woman, she is an apostate, she is a Christian, and she dares to confront the Quran. And she has done more damage to the Quran than anybody I know in my lifetime. Anybody I know, I've never seen anybody do this much damage to this book. And that's always because she understands it. She also understands how weak it is, and she wants to make sure that the public knows. And she will not stop until she is killed.
Jay, I think we'll bring it to a close on that. And again, our viewers can find you, Fander Films, Pfander Films. It's up there on YouTube. They can watch many of your videos, and it is fascinating, the research work you're doing. And it seems to get broad, so many different areas it seems to bring in. So I'd encourage our viewers to go on that. And of course, I think it's DCCI Ministries is on, I think YouTube is the best place. I know there's a dcciministries.com, but I think the YouTube channel has a lot more videos and content on that. So go and have a look. If you haven't come across Hatun, you need to have a look at her YouTube channel. So DCCI Ministries over on YouTube, and you'll be able to watch many of the videos on that. So Jay, thank you once again for your time. I know that you've been inundated, having known Hatun for many years. Many have asked you for your thoughts, and I saw the video you did right on Sunday in your car. You put out one immediately. So I know you've been in demand to try and help us understand what exactly has happened. So thank you for your time and sharing your thoughts.
Thank you. God bless you, Peter.
Thank you, Jay.